So this is more of a survey talk, including some more recent results, and it's about a research agenda. And this is a series of papers about concerning dynamic pricing, and you'll see that this goes back to SODA '08, and then there's all, which that paper actually won't talk about, but then there's all these more recent papers. You also notice that Michal Feldman is the co-author on a lot of these. There's other work having to do with pricing and online settings, which is in different models. I'm just posting this on this, but I'm not going to talk about any of this. And there's lots of other related work. And again, I'm not going to talk about much of anything, except when it's actually required. But you have to give credit, right? So that's it. So we're dealing with selfish online events. So these are events behind which is a selfish agent. And a selfish agent will do things in a way that will maximize the agent utility. And we're going to be looking at all sorts of settings in this talk. So we're talking about the parking problem, also known as metrical matching, service calls, and we'll talk about K-server problems, task systems, queue management, different forms of queue management, scheduling problems, allocation problems. And these photos here are meant to suggest the different problems, which we'll get to. Now, as Michal mentioned, you want two things. You want mechanisms that are simple. You want mechanisms that are truthful. If they're not truthful, then it's not clear what you get, because if it's selfish agents, you get garbage in, garbage out. It's not clear that you're achieving anything. And you want things to be as simple as possible. And one notion of simplicity that we're all familiar with is posted prices. So there's prices that are posted on different things, and we are selfish agents, and we choose and take whatever we want depending on the price and our value for the items. And prices may also change over time. So for example, there's a shortage of bananas, or there's an excess of bananas, and the price changes, and gasoline price changes, and so on. And we can think of an even simpler setting, which is where prices are either zero or infinity. Infinity means that these items are not actually available. They're not there, so we might as well say they're infinity. And so either there's a bunch of items that you can get at no cost, and there's other items that you can't get at all. And these things also might change. I mean, you run out of stock in the supermarket, and the price suddenly becomes infinity simply because it's unavailable. And then, so we want to look at an online setting, and we have this thing called online algorithms. Online algorithms deal with events and make decisions. And so an event comes in, an event arrives, whatever this event is. Now, this is not a selfish event. This is just an arbitrary event. I mean, there's something occurs, and some decision is made. I'm leaving events and decisions completely arbitrary in this setting, because the stop sign means nothing. And then another event comes in, and another decision is made. The decision depends on the entire history up to now. So all previous events, including the current event, and some decision is made. And another event, and another decision, another event, another decision, and so on. Again, these decisions mean absolutely nothing. They have no significance, whatever these things are. Now, we're going to talk about pricing schemes. And these are going to be dynamic pricing schemes, and they set prices before selfish agents make their decisions. So the picture is like this. There's an online pricing scheme, and it sets prices. So basically, these are now the set of decisions that can be made by the event. The event is now a selfish agent, an intelligent selfish agent, and it decides what to do. It decides which of these possible decisions to make. Now, in general, some decisions might actually be, the set of decisions need not be fixed. It can change over time. Because at one point of time, some decisions are relevant, at another point of time, other decisions are relevant. But in any case, the online algorithm decides upon what to do. It makes a decision on its own. Now we're going to let the event make the decision. So before an event arrives, we set prices associated with every decision. And the utility of an agent is going to be the value for making that decision minus the price of that decision. So it's going to be a selfish setting. So an event comes in. It's now a selfish agent. It sees the prices, and it chooses one of the possible decisions. There's a set of possible decisions: stand up, sit down, jump, whatever these decisions are. And it chooses one of these possible decisions. Now the prices have changed, because after this first event has come in, the state of the system might have changed. So we can set new prices. These are dynamic prices. And another event comes in, again a selfish agent, and chooses one of these possible decisions. Now again, prices change. Another event comes in and makes a decision. Note that the critical property here is that these decisions are made by the selfish agents after the prices have been set. So the prices do not know what the next event is going to be. Actually, they know nothing about the event parameters. They know nothing what the event is, but they set these prices. These are all possible decisions. Whoever comes in makes a choice, and so on. Now, these things, this type of setting, because we're setting posted prices, this is obviously truthful in the sense that an agent comes in. We don't ask him anything. We don't query anything about his properties, his valuations, where he wants to go, whatever. He just chooses things on his own. Formally, this is obviously truthful. That's a term that's well defined, but also in the common sense of English, it's obviously truthful. Now, the general idea is going to be the following. We're going to look at problems for which there are online algorithms, for which there's some online algorithm that gets some competitive ratio, say C competitive. We're going to massage that online algorithm. We're going to get a modified algorithm. And the reason we want this modified algorithm is that this algorithm will somehow be more amiable to being emulated by setting dynamic pricing. And then we'll get a dynamic pricing scheme, which mimics this modified algorithm. And I think we're going to see several of these cases, however far we go, where we do the exact same thing. We take a given algorithm, an online algorithm, not truthful, not anything. We modify it. We get something that we can emulate by using dynamic prices, and then we get a dynamic pricing scheme. Now, one might suspect that, in fact, you can do this for any online problem at all, and it's an arbitrary online problem. That's not true. In fact, we'll show examples where there's a big gap, an exponential gap, between what you can get via an online algorithm and what you can get via a dynamic pricing scheme. So it's not true that this is a panacea for anything, but it does work in some cases, and these cases I'm going to be looking at. So I'm going to talk about case study number 1, SOTA 15, about parking. And this is a problem that anybody that lives in a city is familiar with. I mean, you can't find parking. And there's this problem is also known as metrical matching. And we're looking at the following scenario. The car over there, is a selfish car, wants to get to this coffee shop, the coffee shop down here. And there's a single parking spot next to every coffee shop. So the car just parks there. Then a second car comes in. It also wants to get to this coffee shop. But the single parking spot has been taken up. So it can go either to the left or to the right, and it wants to walk the minimum distance possible from its parking spot to the coffee shop. And it's not allowed to wait. Yeah, it's okay. So there's this book by Donald Soup, who's a professor at UCLA, called The High Cost of Free Parking. It's a big book. And in this book, he says that you actually ask people in UCLA, on the streets of Los Angeles, you ask them at the traffic light, what are you doing here? And it turns that 1/3 of them are just cycling around looking for parking. So that's the wait aspect of it. In reality, people do wait. They just go round and round. Okay, so now another car comes. So this car came in. It wants to go here. It can go either here or here. It obviously chooses the closer one, so it goes here. Now this guy comes in. She wants to go to this coffee shop. This coffee shop, the single parking spot there is occupied. So she can go either here or there, right? Either to the left or to the right, to the first free parking spot. And it turns out that she's going to go to the left. And you can guess what's going to happen next. Somebody else is going to come in. He's going to go again. And you're going to get the following interesting outcome, is that you have an exponential cost if people just behave greedily and selfishly and just go to the closest parking spot. But the optimal cost in this case is 1. It's enough that this guy were to go here, and from that point on, everybody else will be parking exactly at the coffee shop they prefer. So Lewi-Gupta came up with an online algorithm for login competitive for this problem. And the question is, again, this is an online algorithm. The online algorithm is it asks somebody where you want to go. It now tells you where to go, and it directs you to this parking spot. So it turns out that this algorithm, in fact, in general, most algorithms will not be truthful. I mean, there's no reason people will reveal their true preferences, in this case, with respect to coffee shops. In fact, we'll show that it's easy to game the algorithm. And moreover, I mean, it's hard to convince people to park where you tell them to park. I mean, it doesn't necessarily work. I can think of some societies where this will definitely fail. Okay, so this is not entirely a bizarre idea because it's actually being used in practice. Both in San Francisco and in Los Angeles, there are these applications. They have different parking rates for different parts of town. And basically, these rates change. So the period in San Francisco is 2 weeks. They change once every 2 weeks. You look at the average congestion. You try to increase the prices if there's more congestion. I'm sure that some of you have taken the fast route from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv. I just did so on a bus. But it's fantastic. You pass by all these poor suckers that are stuck in traffic, but you have to pay. Right? So these ideas are actually, I'm sorry? You can simulate in a train, yeah. Exactly. So I was coming back with a bus from Jerusalem last week, and the first time I actually used this thing, because who would pay 5 shekels to gain an hour in one's life? Right? Doesn't make sense, right? I was on the bus. The bus was free. It went to Jerusalem and back from the university, and everything was free, including it was fantastic. So the complete dynamic pricing algorithm is very simple. And it basically says the following. You use harmonic probabilities. I mean, if you're closer to one end, you should prefer that one end. So this block means that there's parked cars all along this segment, and the first free parking spot is either on the left or on the right. And then you just use these probabilities to go to the left or right. And It's logarithmic. The competitive ratio is logarithmic. The thing is, it's obviously not truthful. The reason it's not truthful is the following. Say I actually want to go here. Well, if I go here, there's some probability I'll go to the left, there's some probability I'll go to the right. But if I say I want to go here, I'll definitely go to that spot, right? So I might as well lie, right? I mean, there's no reason for me to tell the Lewi-Gupta algorithm where I want to go. So it's not incentive compatible, okay, and it requires discommunication. The thing is, you can emulate this thing via prices very simply. You choose a random point along this block of parked cars. Now, what you want to do is you want to set prices for the free parking spot adjacent on the left and the free parking spot adjacent on the right, so that this becomes the point of indifference. If you're at this point, you have equal utility for going left and going right, which is exactly what Lewi-Gupta are doing, but they're doing it without prices. Now the question is, how do you continue? How do you bind together all these prices? You have many blocks of contiguously parked cars. You have this relationship between the price on the left and the price on the right. Now you have to connect them, and you have to ensure that you don't have too big jumps in between. So you can set your favorite social value here. You can say, I want the prices to be such that they're as low as possible. I want to get as much revenue as possible. You could think of different settings, and still, so you can connect these things up using an LP or some other process, and come up with a consistent pricing for all free spots along this straight line segment. This, I should say, is for straight line segments. Allegedly, there's a paper that's coming out that generalizes this thing to the grid. Although I've been promised a copy of this paper for several years now, so it's not clear that it's coming out anytime soon. So this is an emulation via pricing of the Lewi-Gupta algorithm. And just to give you a sense of what's happening here, I mean, the example we cooked up before, with the example where things went haywire, was entirely deterministic. But you could imagine that these random prices come in, and at some point they break this chain of bad events, and the bad events suddenly collapse, and we no longer have this bad setting. And we might see another example of the same process, of a similar idea going on in another context of matching.
Amos, a question about your model. The price is a display price which is uniformly applicable no matter where you actually want to go?
It's uniform. It's a posted price. Has nothing to do with you. Somebody could come in that wants to park in one cafe, another one might come in. You don't know anything about the next event.
Then it's not clear to me.
It's full information, right?
So suppose you have a region which is fully occupied, and you are trying to distinguish between the left endpoint and the right endpoint, but without knowing where the new car wants to go, it's totally symmetric. What's the difference between the left end or the right end of a block of parked cars?
In an adversarial setting, so we don't know. So in this bad example, this 2 to the k example, it was an adversarially designed setting. We had these parking spots. People went to the left and to the right. We want to break basically what we're doing here. This is true of randomized. A large component of randomized algorithms for online problems and a large component of randomized algorithms for complexity issues is that you're confusing the adversary. The adversary has this clever plan in mind how he's going to create this very bad scenario for you, and by introducing randomization, you're going to hurt the adversary. Randomization here is doing effectively that. It's hurting the adversary. But the analysis goes through the fact that this Lewi-Gupta algorithm works. It has a logarithmic competitive ratio. For absolutely any worst case input, no matter what the input is, it's no more than log n. We're emulating that algorithm. Therefore, we get the same guarantee. We're never worse than log n.
You give different prices to the left and right end, not because people want to go more to the right
No,
or left, but just to
absolutely.
confuse an adversary who tries
Basically, to confuse an adversary.
Okay.
Not all the results I'll be showing have this property of confusing an adversary, because if you talk about deterministic algorithms, there's no aspect of confusing an adversary. But there is an aspect of hedging your bets. So this, again, in online computation in general, there's the question of hedging your bets. And you can hedge your bets by making appropriate decisions in an online setting, and you can hedge your bets by setting appropriate prices, where you don't make the decisions, but a selfish agent makes the decision. But you set prices in such a way that you nudge them to hedge the bets that society is making as a whole.
Almost back to the way you changed the Lewi-Gupta algorithm. What happens if you have a contiguous area which is unoccupied? Or let's say two spots which are
Okay, so I said you have to tie together the prices that connect one. So you have basically you have the difference between the prices along every possible set of contiguous parked cars. This gives you the difference, the random difference. Now you have to fill in the blanks. You can fill in the blanks in many ways, right? There's many consistent ways. What you do want the thing to have the following property. If you go to a cafe and nobody's parked there, you actually park there. So you can't have a jump. You can't have that suddenly there's a difference of more than one, or more than the distance between two successive parking spots. So you restrict the difference. So the question is, how do you fill in the prices for those that are not adjacent to the contiguous blocks, right? Well,
or let's say even there is a contiguous area which is occupied, one free spot, one occupied spot, one free spot,
okay.
One occupied spot.
So remember, the only thing we care about is the difference between the prices. This equation here, PV plus X equals PU plus Y, it just talks about the difference. So you need that the difference be something. You could increase everything. You could decrease everything. You could have different goals in mind with respect to the overall pricing policy. I want parking to be as cheap as possible in town. I want pricing to give me as much revenue as I can. I have all sorts of different conflicting goals as to how I fill in the other spots and what baseline I use, because I can use different baselines for this thing. I'm only talking about the difference in pricing here. Yes?
Could this lead to negative prices?
So again, you can insist that no price be negative, right? You could. It's just the next set of constraints. There's nothing here.
But if I have a bound on the maximum price, then maybe I.
Then maybe you okay. So if you have a bound on the maximum price, and you insist everything may be positive, you're going to run into trouble, right? So something has to give way. It's not clear. Well, you definitely don't want to have negative prices for parking. It doesn't necessarily make sense.
But where do you take into account the distance?
Exactly here, where you look at you look at the distance between the two free parking spots, and you choose a random contiguous point in between.
No, but that's how you set the prices. But where do you take into account the fact that some people, the connection between the price and the distance you have to travel?
So the motivation, think of a selfish agent. The selfish agent is going to compare these two options, right? I mean, if there were no prices, he would clearly go to the closer one. Now there are prices. So now he takes into account the price of parking and the distance to the parking spot.
What Moni is asking is that for each person, the distance means a different price. For some persons, 100 meters is like 1 cent, and for other persons, it's like...
I mean, there's no individual distances in this setting. Everybody is lazy. They all have the same. They all have the exact same motivation. Walking 1 meter costs them $1, so they can translate meters to dollars and vice versa, British pounds, whatever the setting is. So yeah, if there's individual utilities, then that's that's something else. I'll go through this very quickly because I want to go to other problems. A famous problem is the K-server problem. There's K-servers in some metric space. There's requests. These are events. An online K-server algorithm looks at the event and decides which server to move to the event. Which server goes to move to the event. So requests are served without knowing future events, but you certainly look, the online algorithm looks at the current event. And the goal is to minimize the total distances traversed by the servers. Again, we're going to replace these events, which are neutral, have no intelligence or incentives or utility, and by events that are selfish. So now events arrive online, and the position where the agent requires service is private information. Now, every server has an associated surcharge, a price associated with it, and this is set before the agent arrives. And now the game here is that the agent has a request. It's going to pay for the gasoline in order to get the service, and it's going to pay this extra surcharge. And we want to emulate an online K-server algorithm, which does something else. So this is a selfish K-server problem. These are servicemen. There's a request for service. There's a leaking tap. And everyone has a cost associated with making this service. And now it turns out that 6 plus 2 is greater than 2 plus 4, which I guess it is. So in fact, the service request, which is selfish, will move this server over here, pay for the gasoline and the surcharge. And again, there could be another request and so on. An online algorithm, not a selfish, in a non-selfish setting, it's called double cover, works as follows. You move servers at the same speed. You look at two along the line. This works on the line. A generalization also works on trees. There's other algorithms for other metric spaces. So on the line, you move the two closest servers towards the request until one of them hits the request. This is what happens when you run this algorithm. Of course, you could say, well, there's no need to move two. You could do things lazily. Let's ignore that aspect for now. There's another request. Again, the two closest servers move. If it's at the endpoint, only the last server moves. It's an optimal K-competitive algorithm, deterministic and so on. We want to modify this algorithm so that it has properties that we can convert to prices. So one property we need is locality, which is if a request falls between two servers, it's served by one of the two adjacent servers. Another property we need is monotonicity, which says that if this thing is served by two, then everything between two and this point is also served by two. You don't want to have a server jump over another server. And the first theorem is that every local and monotone algorithm can be priced. And again, it's very similar arguments. We look at these, we look at the region for the different servers. And we say, well, we want to have, so the regions are described, okay. So this is the region that would be served by server number 3. This is the region that would be served by server 2. Now all we want to do is set prices so that at these points the server is indifferent between the two. So at this single point of transition, we want agents to be indifferent between choosing the server on the right and on the left. Very similar idea. And these are prices that actually ensure this. So now we don't have to run double cover for this algorithm. We just, the selfish agent, no matter where it falls, would actually emulate what not double cover, what this local and monotone algorithm will do. So there's a local and monotone algorithm, and that we can set prices so that this is emulated. So again, what we said is we want to produce a local algorithm. So K-server is not going to be local, and if we go to trees, it becomes even more complicated. Let me not go into this detail, but the idea is that you can massage the algorithm so as to make it local. This is just to say, this is an example where the server that's actually supposed to deal with the request is not adjacent to the request. This could happen if we just try to emulate what double cover would do. Well, in this case, it's actually very trivial. We can just move another server to the request, and we can show that this is going to be a different online algorithm, but the comparative ratio will remain the same. And in this case, it's pretty obvious that it has to remain the same. And this can be generalized to trees. And a great open question, there's lots of open problems. I mean, what can you do more generally for more general metric spaces? And that's pretty wide open at the moment. This thing also extends to something known as metrical task systems, which I'm going to quit. I'm going to skip. Let's summarize these things. Let me talk about it in the very same spirit, in the exact same spirit, but another paper, and the same sort of result. This is with Alan Reutman and Michal, who's sitting over here, and this is make span minimization. And we're looking at the following things. There's two. This is a problem you're all familiar with. You go to a supermarket. There's a slow clerk. There's a fast clerk. And then you see the people in line, right? Some of them have lots of things in line. Some of them don't have huge carts. Some of them have small carts. So you have, and then you try to ask yourself, where should I go? Should I go? Well, you go. Obviously, what you do is you compute exactly how long it will take for each of them, for you to reach the head of the line, and you take the one that promises you a shorter time.
But in Israel, the queues are dynamic because somebody cuts in front of you with additional items.
And someone just has a question. Yeah.
So we're going to solve that one too, because we're going to have a gatekeeper in front of every queue, and he's going to charge a price for entering that queue. So just to be clear, in case it's not clear, if you behave greedily and you actually ask yourself what's the right thing, you're not doing that well for society. I mean, myopically, you're doing well for yourself because that's the best thing you can do. But society as a whole is going to suffer because the total length of time people, or in this case, the maximum make span is going to be higher. So this is not the way to optimize society's goals. Although I don't think there's much options. So anyway, again, very much like the high-speed line, the high-speed path from Jerusalem to Tel-Aviv, there's a charge for entering this queue, the charge for entering this queue. These are different charges because, well, the queues are identical. And then now you ask yourself, well, when will I actually get done? And I'm going to add to that how much I have to pay because we're in a quasi-linear setting. And that will be my cost, and I want to minimize my cost. And my cost now has two components. So the general problem is, we're talking now about the maximum. We'll talk about the sum of completion times later, maybe today. Actually, I'm not sure how much I have left, if anything. 16, 1/6, okay. So there's machines, or if you think of it as supermarket queues, it doesn't really matter. And they have some load, some current load right now. I don't mind, the people leave the queue because they get service. That's all fine. I mean, everything works. There's a current load on the machine. And agents arrive and they have a processing time. And you want to minimize the maximum, which is the time it takes the last guy to finish. The time it takes the last guy to finish. And now we add prices. And the thing is, the machines, the agent themselves, my own shopping cart, could have different sizes depending on the different clerks in the supermarket. Because one supermarket is very good at moving, bread around. Another one is very good at moving something else around. maybe the supermarket is a bit getting old in this state, but think of it as being, these are different machines that have different properties, and different tasks cost, different jobs cost different times on these different machines. And you have many models, I mean, the unrelated machines where there's no connection between the different machines. Every job has its own unique time or price on every machine. Related machines, where the machines simply have speeds, a slow supermarket clerk, a fast supermarket clerk, and you can have identical machines. And I'll be talking now about related machines. So we just want to put it that the mix, when the job goes here and adds speed to the load, the total load is going to be 12 plus 3. But the agent doesn't only look at that, it also adds the price to this thing, in this case $5. And then it chooses the machine that minimizes the sum of the current load, its own processing time, and however much it costs it to enter the queue. And we get an O1 competitive dynamic pricing for related machines, and omega of m lower bound, m is the number of machines or the number of supermarket queues, a dynamic pricing on unrelated machines. So let me just point something out in this thing, because this is actually somewhat interesting. Let's look at unrelated machines and the online algorithm. And this is log m. That's the upper bound and lower bound is typed from many years ago. And static, one can also consider a different version of the problem where the prices are, you can't change prices. Prices are set once and for all. And for all of these problems, you can look at static prices and dynamic prices. So, but let's look at the dynamic pricing here. Here you get something that's m. I mean, theta of m. So these two things, so that it's not true that every online problem and any online setting can be translated into a dynamic pricing setting. There's some property of the online problem that makes it amiable to dynamic pricing in selfish events. Now, we don't have a characterization. I mean, there is no characterization as far as, I don't know of any characterization. But there's a lot of examples repeatedly, over and over, in many different settings, where the same type of thing holds. There's an online problem, you can convert it to a pricing scheme, you might lose something, but we know that in general, you could have an exponential gap. And, okay, just to explain that, in all of these problems, if you behave greedily, just greedily, no prices, and it is selfish agents to behave greedily, you can be very bad off. In the case of anamorphical matching, and we saw this in parking, and in many of these other problems, greedy behavior with if there's no pricing, no incentives, I mean, no incentives are set, we can do something. So let me just say what the main idea is. Again, it looks very much the same picture. We have an online algorithm, which is not clear exactly how to modify to get pricing. But the way we think about it is that we modify the algorithm, come up with a new online algorithm. The new online algorithm is more flexible in the sense that it's willing to accept more decisions, other decisions than the original algorithm. And this one, it turns out, one can price. So let me just give you some ideas of what's going on here. So imagine that there's a certain, these are related machines. So the cost of agent I to go on machine A is the current load of machine I, plus this is the size of the supermarket cart divided by the speed of the supermarket clerk. That's how much load gets added. And this is the price. So this, if we draw this as a function of the load of the cart, it's a straight line. This is the slope, and this is where it hits the y-axis. If we had two different machines, two different prices, they'd have different slopes in this case, And they would meet here. This would be an intersection point. And what this means is the following. If the size of my cart is small, I prefer what is in fact the slower machine, this one. But if the size as the size of my shopping cart gets bigger, I'm going to prefer the second clerk, the second queue. And again, I could shift this up by changing the prices. The typing issue, I won't get into it. So there's some online algorithm, let's pretend there's some online algorithm that assigns the dog, assigns J to machine 1 if the size of the cart is less than outing, and machine 2 if the price of the cart is greater than 8. And the slopes are such that, so what we're going to do is that we're going to sift this line until this intersection point becomes exactly where we want the switch over to occur. And we can do this because we control the prices. So we can set the prices so that the intersection point will be exactly where we want it to be. There's an issue with equal slopes. It's actually not entirely trivial. I'm going to ignore it completely. Now, if there's many machines, then again, by sifting these prices, we can ensure that different machines get mapped to, that different size shopping carts get mapped to different queues as a function of these prices. There's a very old paper, it's from '93, that deals, it's an online algorithm for related machines that gives an 8 competitive algorithm. Now, there's some details here that I'm going to ignore. But what this is doing, it's called slow fit, is that let's assume it knows the optimum make span, the maximum optimum make span. It considers all machines for which the load after putting the job in the machine will be no more than twice the optimum make span. So we say, I'm going to put it on any machine, on any queue where it's no more than twice the optimum make span. And of all these, I'm going to choose the slowest machine. The slowest possible supermarket clerk, so long as by the time I get done, I haven't spent more than twice the maximum make span. This is an algorithm goes way back. And you can prove, in fact, that this thing will never, if you know what the optimal make span is, you'll never make an error. And if not, you can do doubling. I won't go into that. And basically what you want to do is emulate this thing. You want to assign the lowest index, the slowest machine, so that the make span after you add the job is no more than twice the optimum. Okay, so a job is feasible if this thing holds, right? It's feasible on I, which is the same as saying that the size of the shopping cart is no more than this thing. So as we look at the shopping carts get bigger, it becomes infeasible on this machine. So what's the dynamic pricing scheme? We compute these values, these SI times 2, lambda minus the load. We sort them. Now remember, we always want to put the thing, these are going to be the break-even points. We always want to put the thing on the slowest machine. So what we do is that for all of these segments, even though this is U6, we ignore it, this is U3, we ignore it, we want to put U2 is going to be slower, 2 is going to be slower than these. So all of these will be dealt with by 2, because it's going to be feasible on 2. And so on. And machines that we don't want anybody to use, we just price at infinity. So nobody can use them because they're priced at infinity. And this is fundamentally what's happening. Now, I gave a talk at Simon's on this thing, and shortly after there was a paper by Im Mosley, Poole, and Stein. I think I misspelled Mosley, but anyway. There exists, which does the same thing for maximum flow time maximization, which is a different objective, a harder objective to appear. Okay, so this was make span. Let me say something about sum of completion times. This is again doing this work with Eloned and Michal and Tzachi Taub, and it was at SI 18. So what is the sum of completion time? So this is shown for one machine. We look at the completion time of every one of the jobs, and we just sum them up. That's the sum of completion time. Kind of natural. Now, what we want to do, we're going to talk about multiple machines, but we're now going to talk about an even simpler concept than pricing. The concept is going to be that we're just going to offer you some options, priced at 0, there's no prices, and the other options are just not available. They're not even going to be possible for you to choose them. And we're going to get an optimal logarithmic competitive ratio in this setting, and it's dynamic prices, as I said, and 0 infinity. So just to give a slight favor of what's going on, the actual algorithm is more complicated, but we construct these intervals, these sequences of intervals. So the kth sequence, SK, consists of 2 SK minus 1 intervals plus sequences plus an interval of length 2 to the k. So this 1, 1, 2. This is 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, and then 4, and so on. And this is an infinite sequence and goes on. Now this type of sequence have all sorts of interesting properties. So if you look at SD, which is this ends at something of size 2 to the d, then the total number of intervals of size 2 to the k is within this sequence. Is 2 to the d. So 2 minutes. Okay. So anyway, a mechanism basic in this setting, let's say the first approximation to the mechanism is the following. Time goes on. A job comes in here. It can choose any slot it wants to, but of course it's going to choose the slot that has the earliest time to finish, except that it has to be long enough for its processing time, because after it's going to be preempted at the end of the slot. So a job might come in, it chooses some slot. Time goes on. These are going to be the relevant slots because you don't care if the slot is too long. You just care if the slot is too short. A job comes in, it's going to choose one of these, and so on. This is, if we just run this thing, and we get something, unfortunately, in this case, it's log P max is the longest, and there's a log n. And we really don't want to have this dependency on log n. But to do that, we have to do other things. Let me just jump one. Okay, this is another set of authors. I like the picture. And again, it's a group photo of the authors. This is a real-life event from Toronto. We're moving offices, and we simply can't take everything with us. Come to SF3207 on July 24th, tomorrow. That's no longer true. We'll be giving away stuff for free, including this list of things. So this is the problem. We're leaving the office, we're clearing the table, they arrive sequentially in arbitrary order, and each one gets one desirable item. The point is that people could actually be very bad. So let's look at this setting. This guy comes in, but he's going to choose, he's actually interested in only 2 items. We're going to choose the notebook. This woman comes in, the notebook is no longer available, but she's inconsiderate. So I don't know if you're familiar with this thing. If it's free, I'll take 2. That's a well-known thing. People come in, even if something is worthless to them and it's given away for free, they'll take it, right? And this is These are inconsiderate agents. So what's going to happen is that C is going to take this thing, and the next guy is going to take the next, and you can see that what's happening is that the social welfare, only one guy gets an object he's actually interested in, but everybody else gets things that they're not interested in. This total social welfare is in. And let me just say that this is the solution. So you can show, again, this is very much in the spirit of hitting the adversary where it hurts. I mean, he's planned out this completely bad scenario for you in the setting. Just decide to reject half of the incoming agents, and then you're guaranteed to get a good result. And I'm not going to go through the proof. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but I mean, the W world, they do this pricing like Uber and things like that, where they sort of do it by solving an NP, and they use the dual values as prices. They run it for a little bit, and they're able to prove some theorems about it under some conditions, that the dual give them prices under some stochastic arrivals and things like that. Here you're doing worst case. But is there some general thing that if the online algorithm is based on some linear program and it has some properties, can you say that?
Well, I'm not sure what based on a linear program actually means, because I think you can base anything. But I don't have, we don't know. I mean, as far as I know, there's no characterization of when an online algorithm can be converted to dynamic pricing or not. It seems to hold for a wide variety of cases. These seem to be completely different things. I didn't mention even, there's access control, there's other things that somehow all fall into this framework. But as I pointed out, it's not true in general. So there are cases where this doesn't work, and where this cannot work, not provably cannot work. So understanding how selfish events can be dealt with via pricing is still, I mean, a general theory is open. In many of these cases, what's happening is that these dual prices, I mean, also Walesian pricing is you can view them as dual variables. And in many of these cases, you can view the dual variables as prices. But that's typically for static setting. The settings you think about, I mean, unit demand, Walesian prices, it's a static setting. You look at the dual prices, you get utilities, you get prices. We actually looked at that yesterday.
In the last example of giving away free items, your solution was to choose at random half the people and serve only them. Could you achieve the same thing if you had some control over the ordering? Yeah. Namely, you look at the queue of people in front of you, and you choose either random order or every pair you choose.
If I know how agents prioritize, and there exists a maximum matching, there always is at least one agent whose first choice is the same thing that's matched to him in the maximum matching. What I just said is false. Let me repeat that. Given a maximum matching, you can convert it to another maximum matching by following cycles, so that it has the property that there always is one agent whose first choice is in fact the same item he would have gotten in the maximum, in this modified maximum matching, and therefore by setting the best order, you can always, if there exists a maximum matching, you can always, and you know how to tie the boken, you can do that. Then you have it to okay, good, okay. Okay, so so the same paper that I only mentioned this random thing, also deals with this notion of, say you could divide things into priority classes, a business class and an economy class. Now the order within the business class is arbitrary, the order within the economy class is arbitrary, but you have the right to divide people into two classes, or K classes, or N classes, and we have all sorts of observations there, and I mean, yeah, so that's definitely one, good luck, one class of variance. You can imagine other variants. I mean, random order is a great variant because it almost always works, right? But it kills most adversaries. I mean, at least they can't be that bad.